this morning, and we then saw him get into a little bit of trouble braking for the chicane. It's quite steep downhill, braking for the chicane just after the tunnel. They're at the fastest point of the circuit there, at around about 170 miles an hour, and Schumacher just got the car a little out of shape, decided to straight line it and go straight down the escape road. As you can see, the back end stepping out, thankfully away from the barrier rather than into it, and he was able to keep it all under control and straight down the escape road. Soon back into the pits after that as well, to perhaps make a few changes to the car. And another driver in some difficulties, Jos Verstappen, who'd found his way down the escape road at Mirabeau. It was the section that he'd actually proved to be fastest on in the speed traps in the morning, but perhaps trying a little bit too hard on the brakes come the afternoon session. But it didn't worry him too much. He was able to get going once again, return to the pits and come out again later on. Olivier Panis was also down an escape road, this time down at Saint-Devote. Very easy to just brake a fraction too late, another fast approach into a very tight right-hander. That's the corner at the end of the start-finish straight, the corner that we see so many problems at the beginning of a Grand Prix. Panis able to get going once again though, and not cause him too many problems. Both McLarens out on circuit. Hakkinen second fastest at this point to Damon Hill, and once again putting in some very quick laps. Hakkinen's had a couple of difficult races in the last two. The Nürburgring finished in 8th position, same place in fact in San Marino, but both races saw him in trouble coming to the pits to make stop and go penalties. In Nürburgring for speeding in the pit lane, and in San Marino for holding up the race leader Michael Schumacher. And Mika Hakkinen joking this morning that he's got larger mirrors on the car, so that it won't happen here in Monaco. Well, judging by his pace today, he shouldn't have too many problems in terms of being lapped by the leaders. He should be right up there amongst them. Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan Peugeot, and once again putting in quick times. Again running the mid-wing just like McLaren, although we have seen it on the Jordan Peugeot previously this year. Barrichello lying in 6th place in the championship at the moment on 7 points, has put together some consistent results. 2 5th places in the last 2 Grand Prix, a 4th place before that in Argentina after 2 non-finishes to start the season. Things going well in terms of scoring points, but they now need to find just that little bit more to get consistently on the podium. This is his 4th visit to Monaco. Had a 9th place on his first visit in '93, but the last 2 seasons have seen him fail to finish, so he'll be out to try and improve on that record. Pedro Lamy going well in the Minardi today, and in fact both Minardi drivers feeling pretty happy with the balance of the car. They would end up in 14th and 15th places today, and proving that lack of power is not such a disadvantage here. Lamy in fact getting used to driving a Grand Prix car here for the first time. Although he's competed over a couple of seasons, making his debut back in '93, this is in fact the first time that he'll have competed at Monaco in a Formula 1 car. He's only failed to finish on 2 occasions this year, so if he can keep that good finishing record up, then he's got a good chance of getting up there somewhere in the race. And Olivier Panis ending up pretty well today, once again with the 6th fastest time, and as we've seen on previous occasions, Friday's going well for the Frenchman. He says it was a difficult session this morning. The early part, the first part of the free practice, saw us quite a long way down, but we reacted well. I was able to tell the engineers exactly what the car was doing, and they worked very hard to improve the setup. It worked really well. It was then up to me to drag the time out of the car, and it responded. I love the track. The car is working well, perhaps not quite good enough yet, but it's still pretty good. And a lot of people were trying hard this afternoon to put a quick time in, so I'm pleased with what we could do. Hopefully we can improve things in qualifying and stay in the top 10. So that 6th fastest time today for Olivier Panis, set on new tyres, and that was part of the question, whether drivers ran new tyres or not today. But Panis deciding to do so. A good performance from him, but he does need to try and repeat that in the qualifying session itself. So many of the qualifying sessions have gone wrong for him this year. He was 13th for the last Grand Prix, 15th on the grid in the Nürburgring, and 12th in Argentina. Ricardo Rosset and Jos Verstappen both out once again, and running pretty much together. In fact, Verstappen on a very good lap, but getting held up, ironically, by his teammate in the last third of the circuit. Difficult part of the track to actually allow somebody to come past, and Rosset unable to find a space for his team leader to go through, and Verstappen's time therefore not quite as good as it could have been. Verstappen definitely in with a chance, though, of surprising some of the top teams here this weekend. Remember, he's put in some great performances already this year, has scored 1 point in the World Championship. That was in Argentina, another tight and twisty track with many hairpins, and another track that really responded well to the car. The Hart engine providing lots of power that's usable out of the slow corners, and Jos Verstappen, a highly committed racing driver, dragging the last few tenths of a second out of the car. Problems at the last Grand Prix, of course, in Imola, when they had that scary moment in the pit lane, when he actually set off while the refueling hose was still attached to the car. He was given the signal to leave the pits, which he did, but unfortunately the refueling hose was still attached to the car, and that dragged part of the refueling equipment. It actually broke away, but that allowed fuel to pour out over the pit lane, and one of his team members was injured in the incident. In fact, is out of action for a while, and so hopefully recovering in hospital in the UK, damaging his knee in that. Well, Verstappen and the team have been to Santa Pod as well, like Benetton, in the meantime, to put in some practice on the pit stops and to try and make sure that nothing like that can occur again. And Tom Walkinshaw now running the team, of course, responsible largely for the excellent pit performance of the Benetton team when he was so involved there, and it's obviously his influence now coming to bear within the team to make sure that the pit lane action is really smartened up for this weekend and for successive Grand Prix. So Verstappen very much putting on a good show this morning, earlier on, and this afternoon as well, returning to a track that he knows not terribly well, having done some laps here in the Simtek last year. In fact, the last Grand Prix that Simtek competed in, but he didn't get that many laps. He didn't get into the race at all. He didn't start on the restart of the race after the accidents, and so still, to a certain extent, getting used to driving a Grand Prix car here. Well, it was obvious he was trying pretty hard from the times that he was recording. A locking brake coming out of the swimming pool section, indicating just how hard Jos Verstappen was trying, and perhaps a little too hard in the end. Into Rascasse, the same corner that David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher had already had a spin. Jos Verstappen losing it under braking and wiping out both the rear and front wings off the footwork hard. Again, another view, and the back end, in a way, not spinning around enough for him to be able to avoid that barrier, unlike Schumacher and Coulthard, and the resultant damage done. You're speaking, saying that, well, yes, that corner is one of the biggest problems on this racetrack. It's one of the most difficult corners, there's no doubt about that. I was trying to find the limit there, and all you can say is that I basically went a little bit over the limit. Easily done, and well, you could see what happened. It's fairly obvious it was a little bit too much, and I damaged the car. But it's no major problem, and I'm going to try harder on Saturday. See if we can do a better job then. Michael Schumacher on circuit again at this point. Still using old tyres, and the back end of the Ferrari sliding around pretty much under control, but still looking somewhat more twitchy perhaps than last year's car. If you remember those glorious power slides, particularly out of this corner, out of Casino Square from Gerhard Berger. And this year's car definitely a little bit more nervous than the 95 version. But Schumacher up on the split, throwing it into the Lowe's hairpin, and challenging that fastest time that had been set at this point in the session by Damon Hill. Schumacher, as aware as anybody, the importance of qualifying come Saturday. Took his first ever pole position, in fact, here at Monaco, and that was in 1994, although with the space being left vacant following the death of Ayrton Senna in the previous race. They started, in fact, from the second row of the grid, but that was the first occasion that Schumacher had set the fastest time in qualifying, and this weekend is going to be so important to try and do the same here. The car sliding out of the final corner in dramatic style, and Schumacher setting a time of 25.337, some way off Hill's mark at this point, but still around the same time he was putting in some quick laps as well. And so to the World Championship leader, leading on 43 points after his 4 wins so far this season. Tremendous performance that it's been this year, and so important for him to win here in Monaco, to try and take victory on the circuit where his father had so much success. Well, Damon's already matched the number of wins that he had in last year's championship. Remember, he won 6 races back in 1994, so he's not far off that mark either. And he looked very confident today. Every time he was out there, he was setting quick times. It all looked very much under control. And indeed, Damon Hill would end up with the fastest time of the free practice session this morning, and the second fastest time of the free practice session this afternoon, set on old tyres. And another one on old tyres was Gerhard Berger.
Situation, actually.
Quite good day. I was from the place I'm just 9th, what is not that important on Friday, but I was on used set of tires. Everybody, until everyone used new tires, I was second quickest behind Damon. So I was quite satisfied with my time. Then except Damon and Jean, everyone used new tires, and of course I dropped back, but that was normal. I didn't want to use the new tires because I want to keep it for the qualifying on Saturday. So I'm more confident than before the race.
The feeling with your car on this particular track?
It's very difficult, but the lap time is all right.
So Gerhard Berger feeling fairly happy about things with the car in race performance. He'd end up the session, in fact, in 9th place, but 3rd fastest amongst the cars that used old tyres only today. So a good performance for the Austrian, boding well for the weekend.
Artistic Gymnastics Championship.